go to a park and I like watching TV with Grandpa. Watch sports and go hiking with him.
Watch movies with him.
Play with Legos and hike. I like going on walks and going hiking with Grandpa.
I like to go hiking with him. I like to go out with him just to a lagoon or to a restaurant. I like to go camping with him.
I like to play with him.
I like to go camping in the summer and hiking in the summer.
Watch football.
He likes to play golf, watch sports, eat popcorn, stuff like that.
Go hiking by himself and play Legos by himself.
Mountain bike.
Go hiking and snowboard. He likes to watch sports and watch movie.
Read a book. And go to church. I'm gonna say 42.
70. 17.
21. 55? No. 53.
19. 32.
I think he is 60.
I love you, Grandpa.
Say it again.
I love you, Grandpa. Love you, Grandpa.
I love you, Grandpa.
I love you, Grandpa.
I love you, Grandpa.
I love you, Grandpa. I love you, Grandpa.
When I think about the childhood that I had, I'm kind of amazed by the amount of memories that I have where my dad is fully present and involved. And I think about how busy he was, where he was working full time. He had 4 other kids, a wife, church callings, and so many other things going on. But I always felt like he made me a priority. And I have so many memories, like I said, where he was involved, from soccer games when I was little to him taking me to my first concert and teaching me how to snowboard, and we'd go on countless Sunday afternoon walks and drives. And I really just feel like he was there for me. And I look back to when I was in junior high and high school, and when my friends' parents would take us snowboarding, they would drop us off after they drove us up to the resort. The kids would just snowboard all day, and then they would pick us up at the end of the day. But when my dad would go, he would actually snowboard with us all day, and it got to the point where my friends would invite me to go snowboarding, and they'd ask if my dad could come too. And when you really think about it, I think it's pretty rare for a teenage girl to want to be hanging out with her dad on the weekend, but even more rare for her friends to want to be hanging out with him as well. But I just feel like that's the kind of person that he is, and he's always has made it a priority to get to know me and my friends and my interests, and then also be making sure that we develop those common interests. And I feel like that has built the foundation for the relationship that we have today. And I feel like I'm really lucky to be able to consider him not just a dad, but one of my best friends as well. And I love that I have the kind of relationship with him where I can call him up and we can make plans for a summer hike. And for this upcoming snowboarding season, I know that both he and I have had several people ask us to get passes with them, but we've decided just to plan our snowboarding season together, and there's nobody else that I'd rather be on the mountain with. And it's not just the activity that we're doing. I feel like we have really great deep conversations as well, to where he really knows me and I feel like I know him, and I love that we have that relationship. And I honestly think that because he made that a priority from the time that I was really little, we have that relationship now. And if he hadn't made that a priority, or if other things had gotten in the way, which they easily could have, we wouldn't have the relationship that we have now. But I really do appreciate that he always has been there for me, and that we do have such a great relationship now. So thank you so much, Dad. I really love you.
I remember as a child always looking up to Dad, and I remember I was at Grandma and Grandpa Altum's house, and we came across a newspaper article about Dad when he was in high school, and he played high school football, and it talked about how incredible it was that I think he had like 2 interceptions in a row, and they returned a punt for a touchdown or something, and I was like, oh my gosh, Dad, you were a stud. So I remember being really young and kind of reading that and having a strong impression, at least a strong example, and I was like, I want to play football. And so that was like the first instance that made me want to play football. And I remember Dad came often to practices and eventually just became an assistant coach. And I remember all through my practices, I obviously everybody knows that I'm super lazy, but Dad pushed me harder than I ever wanted to go. And I remember one time he pushed me and he was like, Todd, you need to push hard to where you want to throw up, which sounds like, nowadays kind of sounds a little bit mean, but I actually really appreciate that, because he pushed me harder than I ever would have gone. And I just have always appreciated his example of hard work and dedication, and I think that's a good example of how he's been able to teach me and push me hard work. I was only like 11 years old, maybe 10 years old when that happened, but that's always left a strong impression on me that I respect my dad as somebody who works hard, as well as somebody who can push me to work harder.
I have a lot of childhood memories about Dad. Growing up, I remember a lot of times when he'd take us camping or cross-country skiing, spend time outdoors hiking, doing a lot of things. I also remember going to the church a lot and watching him play basketball. He had a really wicked two-handed spin reverse off the glass layup that he would always do, and could take a charge with the best of them. He's really tough on the basketball court. But as I got older, a lot of the things that I start to remember about Dad were when I played soccer. He would always be the one to take me to games and to be there cheering me on the sidelines, while also yelling at the refs. And it always just meant a lot with how present he always was in my life, that even though he was busy with work and had 4 other kids, I always felt like he was there and available to talk to or to take me places. When I served my mission, I don't think he missed a week, and if he did, it wasn't very often that he'd miss writing me. But he's just always been a really good example to me of someone who's a righteous father, who's very consistent in his the way he lives the gospel, but also lives his life. Wakes up early every day. He goes to bed early, but he really does that so that he can make the most out of every day. And I appreciate a lot of things about Dad, but just his example and his consistency in life is what I love the most about him. Love you, Dad.
Some childhood memories I have. I always remember camping and hiking. I remember with the Boy Scouts, whether you were a leader or just as my dad, we would always go camping and cooking together. I also remember you teaching me how to snowboard. Lots of things with the outdoors. You taught me how to work with tools, how to work with my hands. That's something that I learned from you and that I've been proud to carry on from you.
I don't have a lot of memories, good or bad, from my childhood. I have a horrible memory. I remember little things when we lived in Altamont and Dad was walking me to school and I fell in a ditch. Dad had to grab me out and then we had to go back home and change out of my wet clothes. I remember working on stuff in the lawn, working on the swing set in the backyard when bolts would come loose and things like that. And then some of the best is now that we're adults and we really do get along a lot better, understand each other a lot better, that we have fun when we're hanging out watching TV or watching watching golf down in the theater room, any of those sort of things, and going out and golfing and just hanging out. It's always fun.
I remember the first time that I met Mark. I had been really busy that semester at BYU with marching band, and I remember that toward the end of October, first part of November, I started looking around my ward and looking to see if there was anyone there that I would be attracted to or want to date and get to know. And I went to church one day and Mark was blessing the sacrament that day, and I remember looking over and seeing this really cute, handsome guy and thinking, wow, that is somebody I would like to get to know. And he had a great smile and an athletic build, and I just thought, I don't know how I would ever be able to meet him. Well, later that afternoon we had choir practice and I went to choir and he was there. And so we met, and it wasn't very long after that that he asked me out. And our first date was to a 12-stake fireside, and the speaker was Mark E. Peterson. And after the fireside, it was snowing lightly and it was dark, and we just walked around the streets of Provo for a long time and probably a couple of hours, talked and just laughed and shared and really got to know each other. And from there, just things progressed, and it wasn't till about a month later, he invited me to go up and meet his family and see the Christmas lights at Temple Square. And that was kind of nerve-wracking, but at the same time, it went really well. And then I remember going home at Christmas that year and telling my mom, I think I've met the guy I'm going to marry. And it's been just a great marriage and a great blessing for me to be married to him and to be his wife. Even though we've had our ups and downs, Mark has been just an amazing father and husband and provider. I am so grateful that when he would come home from work, he wanted to take time to play with the kids and to wrestle with them, and on weekends he would take them camping and hiking and skiing, and he was just a hands-on dad, and his kids adored being with him. The other thing is that he has always been so kind and loving toward me. Even when I didn't feel like I was worthy of that love, he was just a constant, loving husband. And there are so many times when he does little things for me, not because he wants to do them, not because they're important to him, but because he knows that they're important to me. And so when he vacuums the floor or empties the dishwasher, or does other little things around the house, hangs the towels up the way that I prefer to have them, it's because he knows it's important to me and because he loves me. And I really appreciate those little things that he does that makes my life easier. It's just been a great life that we have built together, and I'm so grateful that I am part of his life and that he is part of mine.
Some of Dad's characteristics that I've always been impressed by are his level of integrity and his honesty. And I just remember growing up and watching him make decisions in situations that seemed like they would be tough or kind of gray areas, but to him everything just seemed so easy and black and white. And it's been such a great example for me to grow up with a dad like that, because now those ethical calls are a lot easier for me to make. But I also just really appreciate that I can look to him as a reminder that there are people in this world that have genuine good intentions, that are honest and that are trustworthy, and it gives me hope that there are other people out there like that. And obviously he's not the only one, but I just really appreciate growing up with that example and for his influence to help me be a better person as well.
One of the things I've most admired about Mark since I've known him is, and especially since I have kids now, but he's such a good grandpa, and he's such a good hands-on grandpa, and he always seems like every grandkid is his favorite and that he wants to spend time with them. And even when they're little, and I think most guys or most grandpas, to me I guess, they kind of seem like weary of little people and not knowing what to do with them, but he was always the first one to grab the babies and play with them, and I've always admired that about him. In fact,
So, when I think of like my dad, one of the things I think of the most is just honesty. I remember when I was in like 6th grade, I think it was in 7th grade, and he looked at me, and he's like, "Todd, have you ever cheated on a test?" And I was like, don't know how to answer this. So anyway, the answer was yes, and so I told him, I was like, yeah, I've cheated like here and there, and he was like extremely disappointed. And so from there on out, it was almost like I kind of got a glimpse of how our Heavenly Father feels about us, and I just remember feeling really guilty, and from there, for the rest of my life, I've done my best to be honest and to not cheat, and to always have strong integrity. And so that's one of the things I've appreciated about my dad more than anything, is no matter how embarrassing it is, no matter what it takes, he's always one of the most, he's just as honest as possible, sometimes too honest. But anyway, I love you, Dad, and
So there are a lot of things that I appreciate about Dad, but one of the things I appreciate about him most is that he's very frugal. And some might say that he's cheap, but really it's not because he's cheap, but it's because he recognizes the value of things, and he also works really hard to make things last as long as they can. And he's not wasteful, and there's probably been a lot of times when he's out frustrated that something isn't getting fixed the way that he would want or in the way that he would want, but he's always sticking to it, and he's very persistent, and what's the right word? He's just very, very good about making his money stretch for him, and it really shows that he values the things that he has and doesn't take anything for granted.
Among many things, I have a few things that I'd like to share about Mark that I really appreciate. Mark, you're very, very good with our kids, and I appreciate how you really take the time to get to know our daughters and to be really kind to them. Another thing that I really appreciate is that you have a very calming effect in the family, and whenever you're around, I feel like there's always a peace and calmness amongst the siblings and everyone in the family, and you are a great example of love and kindness and service, and we truly appreciate everything that you do and love you.
I appreciate that you honor your priesthood and that you serve others and never complain about serving others, and I thank you for your example for our family.
When I think of my dad, I think of a honest hard worker, whether it be going to help someone who's in need, with, for example, Jan Thomas or the Richens with their cattle. Or I just have a lot of memories of watching you serve, and some of it is physical service, and some of it's mental or spiritual. And they've always just been someone I can look up to, and helps me want to be a better person.
Yeah. Mark, I appreciate you letting me and Eric and the boys live with you guys while we were building our house. It was fun to see how you and Eric are so similar.
Dad, I've always appreciated how much of a leader you have always been, whether it was with the Scouts or with church or even with your position with the county. And I think that that's something that I've learned or inherited from you, and those leadership abilities have helped me with my career and have gotten me to where I am with Trees Incorporated at this point, with the promotion that I was able to get earlier this year. Your leadership skills is something that I've always appreciated about you.
There are so many things that I really admire and appreciate about Mark. He has such a passion for life, and I've never met anyone who gets more excited and puts more into it and has more enthusiasm than he does for whatever he does, whether it's biking or snowboarding or, you know, working hard, serving, passionate about his family, just passionate about everything he does. In fact, one of his favorite sayings is that even though I'm a grown-up, I refuse to grow up. And I really admire that because he has a lot of fun and he's very passionate about whatever he does. Another thing that I appreciate is what a good provider he has always been for us and for our family. It's been really important to him to get the best jobs and to improve himself and do whatever he needed to do to provide for us and to make sure that we had a good life. And I am so grateful for that, because for a great part I am a big recipient of that, and I appreciate it. One of the things that has cemented our relationship and made us so that we could get through a lot of the ups and downs and trials that we've had is that we share the same values, and that has been a really great thing. We both have a great commitment to each other, and we have a commitment to family, and we have a commitment to the gospel, and we just are there for each other no matter what, and I really, really appreciate that. I know that there's no one I know of who loves the gospel more than Mark does, and he shows it in what he does, in the way he lives, in his service to others, in his reading the scriptures, in his testimony of Jesus Christ and of the atonement. He just believes it with his whole heart, and he lives it with every breath that he takes, and I appreciate that. Another thing that I really love about Mark is how sensitive he is, and we all know that he cries really easily, but I also know that because of his sensitivity, he's a very kind and giving person, and I appreciate that sensitivity in our home. And as it's been turned toward me, he's very considerate and sensitive. I don't know of anyone who would be easier to live with because of his kindness and the things that he does. The other thing that I appreciate is that he is a great father and a great husband. I would love when he would come home from work and play with the kids, and it was important for him to be a big part of their life. He would take them skiing and snowboarding and hiking and biking and whatever he could do to be a part of their life, sports and music, and he was just a big supporter, and that is meant a lot to me. And he's also been a great husband, a great supporter of me and whatever I wanted to do, and in achieving my goals. And being able to do whatever I wanted to do. He was always a big supporter and cheered me on. And I really genuinely appreciate everything that he has done for me. It's made our life together a really great one, and I appreciate it.
We love you.
Happy birthday!
Want to wish you a happy birthday.
I love you, Grandpa.
We love you.
I love you, Grandpa.
I love you, Dad.
I love you, Grandpa.
We love you.
I love you, Grandpa.
We love you.
I love you.